English, Dr. Manju Sharma, co-host Dr. Meena, and dear participants, I, Dr. Rajni Sharma, am going to present my lecture on topic W.B.Yeats as a poet. W.B.Yeats was born in the year 1865 and he passed away in the year 1939. In his poem on the death of W.B.Yeats, which carries the title In Memory of W.B.Yeats, W.H. Auden is paying tribute in the following lines. Now he is scattered among 100 cities and wholly given to unfamiliar affections to find his happiness in another kind of good and be punished under a foreign code of conscience. W.H. Auden highly praised Yeats for his contribution in the lyric poetry of English language, and he called him the greatest poet of lyrics in English language. W.H. Auden praised him right because W.B. Yeats dominated the first half of 20th century with his lyrics. In him, two generations of poetry met. He wrote poems, plays, essays, and footnotes. In the history of Ireland, he was the greatest lyric poet, and he was responsible for Renaissance of art and literature in Ireland. He manifests very long and progressive development. He helped to found Abbey Theatre. He is the force behind Irish literary revival, along with Lady Gregory and Edward Martin, and he established Rhymers Club, where poets used to meet and used to discuss the poetry, and there was literary environment in this club. And he was awarded in the year 1923 the greatest award in literature, which is the Nobel Prize. And Nobel Committee, while giving him award, praised him in the lines, I quote, having inspired poetry in a highly artistic form, which gives expression to the whole nation. W.B. Yeats has a half a century's poetic career, and in this career, we can divide this career in three phases. The first phase is from duration 1886 to 1899. It is the phase of art for life's sake. He is showing continuous development, and this first phase is the phase of very romantic dreams. This phase is remarkable for its dreaminess, picturesqueness, mythical art, and pre-Raphaelite and mystical theories. Chief poems written during this period are Wanderings of Oisin, The Shadowy Water poems, and these poems are very highly romantic in theme and treatment. In these poems, there is not of escapism and dreamy picturesqueness, and this is found in the style also, because there is a vague imagery, and Irish mythology and Irish folklore is abundantly used during this phase. And the phase second is the phase from 1900 to 1918. This is the phase of art for art's sake. This phase is very realistic and transitional, and there is a tone of more reality. And the poems written and volumes written in this period are The Green Hamlet, Responsibilities, The Seven Woods. This was a period of glooms, sorrowfulness, suffering, and philosophy. Suffering in love was there, suffering in politics was there, because he faced bitter experiences in politics also. He also saw very disappointment in theater which he had founded, that is Abbey Theatre. And in a political life also, there were controversies, there were struggles. All these combine to shatter the illusions of him and produce the poetry which is harsh in tone. And the poems of this period are very realistic, because he is coming out of his aestheticism, and his powers are enriched, and he produces very high poetry. The style of this poetry is also very changed, because images are more definite and images are more precise. The phase number 3 is the time from 1919 to 1939, and that is the time of art with life, because now he has grown fully, he has grown up, he has developed himself fully, and his art also, in life also, he is more mature. So this is the time of fully developed modernism phase. Romantic Ireland is dead now, and there is highly complex self-defining system of mythological thought, increase in realism, complexity of moods, maturity of style and technique, and profuse use of symbol is there. And products of this time are the tower, the wild swans at Culé, wandering stairs. So the images, the symbols used in this time are also very complex and intricate. For example, winding stairs and tower are the symbols used in this time. Now we are coming to the major influences and themes of W.B. Yeats. Every poet is affected and influenced by his circumstances and by the people he is meeting. And day-to-day experiences are giving birth to the poetry. And here in the case of Yeats also the same happens. The first influence on him was his native land. He was an Irish by birth. So Irish nationalism is having roots in him, and love for the country is reflected in his poems also. O'Leary advised him to produce poems based on Irish legends, folklore, Irish history, landscape, ballads, and songs also. So he sponsored Irish Republican movement along with Lady Gregory. Literary revival also was brought with the efforts of him, and the political conditions of Ireland are reflected in the poems Easter 1916, 1919. The second influence on W.B. Yeats was religion, because he was Protestant by birth and he was living in the country which was having Catholics more in strength. That's why this controversy was, this conflict was always there between Protestants and Catholics, and he had an interest in other things also. For example, he had interest in Buddhism, he had interest in spiritualism and astrology also. The poems of him are showing the effect of religion. In the poem Selling to Lapis Lazuli, and in the poem Lake Isle of Innisfree, where he is calling nature his god, he wants to go to the lake of nature. In Spiritus Mundi, in the poem Second Coming, and in the poem Lapis Lazuli, where he is regarding art the god. That is the effect of religion only, because nature and art are manifestation of God on earth. And in one poem of also he is calling the, in the poem Selling to Byzantium, he is calling all the holy gods to saints to come on earth and to consume all the senses of him and to make him pure, so that he can be purified and all his senses should be eliminated. And that is the effect of religion only. French symbolist movement was not only having effect on Eliot, it was also having its effect on Yeats also. The major French symbolist poets like Mallarmé and Baudelaire had a great effect on W.B. Yeats, and as a result, he used symbols profusely in his poems. His symbols are first complex in nature, very personal and suggestive. For example, Innisfree is a symbol of utopia, rose is a symbol of absolute beauty and peace, and some symbols have been used by Irish mythology. For example, Leda and Swan has been taken from Irish mythology. The symbols are precise, definite, and concrete in nature. They are meaningful. For example, Byzantium is a symbol of art, and tower is also a symbol of power. Mask and gyre are symbol of the changes of changes in the cycle of nature and in the cycle of man. The great bear is also symbolic, and some symbols are mixture of opposites. They are personal as well as historical. women and love. Women had affected, they had a great effect on W.B. Yeats, and the major three women were responsible for all this. And the first place of them is taking Maud Gonne, Lady Gregory, and Olivia Shakespeare were three greatest women who made him the greatest love poet of the century, greatest love poet of the age. The love poems which he had written for these women are When You Are Old, No Second Troy, Adam's Curse, A Bronze Head, and Reconciliation. And he also wrote a poem, Friends, in which he is he is addressing all the three women who had a great role to in his emancipation. And I quote some of the lines of this poem. Now must I these three praise, three women that have wrought what joy is in my days. Next trait of an influence of W.B. Yeats is romanticism. Romanticism is because he was highly romantic and he was influenced by Shelley and Spenser. They had a great effect on him, and there are all the traits of romantics in him. For example, he has a longing for a place to a more perfect world. He has a longing to escape to fairyland. He is full of love. Love for Maud Gonne changed his whole life. He proposed her for 3 times, but he was unable. And then he had to spend some good time with her. But now the things had changed, and he also wrote a poem for the time he passed in company of her. So extensive use of symbols have been used by him, which is also a characteristic of romantics. Then there is a note of escapism. He wants to escape. In the poem Lake Isle of Innisfree, he says, I shall arise and go now and go to Innisfree. And there is a self-revelation, autobiographical note in his poems, mostly in love poems, in his family poems, in the poems of politics in 1919, in Easter 1916. He has very concretely used the names of the people whom he loves, whom he hates, earlier with whom he had hated, but now he has a high regard for them because of their sacrifice, because of their laying down their life for the sake of the country. And also, the greatest note of romantics, that is melancholy, is highly found in him. He is melancholic. Some poems, for example, in the poem Bronze Head, he is praising the beauty of her. When You Are Old, this poem is telling that he is loving pilgrim soul in her, and he is not loving the physical beauty of her. And that is a kind of assurance to his beloved. And a lot of imagery. He also uses imagery and symbols, which is the characteristics of all great romantics. Then there is Indian influence. India is having its own aura, and that one can't escape that. One who is coming in contact with India or Indian people. That was the case in T.S. Eliot also, and the same is in W.B. Yeats. These two are the greatest poets of this century. And he wrote preface to the English translation of Gitanjali of Rabindranath Tagore. And Yeats was a profound scholar of Indian Vedic philosophy. He translated Upanishads in English, and he believed in Vedic concept of oneness of whole. He had some good Indian friends. Among them are Mohini Chatterjee and Rabindranath Tagore and Purohit Swami. And his mysticism is having imprints of India, because like Indian philosophy, Vedas, Indian scriptures, Indian religion, he is also believing in oneness of soul, oneness of man, because Ahem Brahmasmi, that is the philosophy of Indians, and the same is reflected in his poems also. Next characteristic and theme of his poem, he was influenced by mysticism. He had no faith in Christianity and had his own conviction. It was a mixture of philosophy, mythology, and magic and symbolism, and that is his. He believed in the theory of cyclic process of historical revolution of gyres and correspondence between the phases of moon and phases of human personality, that is anima mundi and spiritus mundi. Anima mundi and spiritus mundi are the example of mysticism in his poems. And he had mystic visions and trances also. He believed in magic and supernatural, and the poems showing mystic theme are All Souls Alight, Double Vision of Michael Roberts, Second Coming, and Sailing to Byzantium. Next note is mythology. He was influenced by mythology, England and Irish mythology, English and Irish mythology, as well as the Indian mythology also. And he, like Keats, he has his poems are abounding in Irish myths and Greek mythology. For example, Troy, Leda, Zeus, Aphrodite, Byzantium, and Nightingale are some of the myths used by him. He also uses mythological beasts, for example, Sphinx-like figures, fairy figures, and I quote some lines of him. And therefore, I have sailed the sea and come to the holy city of Byzantium. Of course, Byzantium is also a place of belonging to mythology, a mythical place, which is having its mystic surroundings. Politics influenced Yeats a lot, and some of his poems are having the theme of politics. He had interference in Irish politics. Throughout his life, he supported Irish nationalism and nationalist movement, though in the end he had disillusionment with Irish people. The poems inspired by political scene are 1919, Easter 1916, September 1913, Meditations in the Times of Civil War, and 16 Dead Men. These poems are highly political in nature. Yeats was a modern poet, and modernism had a great effect on him. He represents the spirit of the age in poetry. He uses myths, symbolism, colloquial language, literary allusions to express anxiety of modern age. After World War I, people suffered very highly, and they were having anxiety, frustration, boredom, and loneliness. Yeats produces the spiritual and psychological status of the modern man. In the Second Coming is the reflecting modern man's chaotic and disordered condition after World War I. I quote some of the lines. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This first line is very epigrammatic. It is epigrammatic in style. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold. This one line is telling the whole of the status of modernism, what kind of people are, just as T.S. Eliot in his poem, The Wasteland, is telling. Now we are coming to the major poems written by W.B. Yeats. W.B. Yeats wrote many poems. It's not possible to tell all of them. I will highlight some of the major poems of him. Leda and Swan. Leda and Swan is a story focusing on Greek mythology, in which Zeus is adopting the form of swan, and he is raping the girl Leda and impregnates her. And the result is the child who is born is Helen of Troy. This act is leading to destruction of the Greek civilization. So this poem shows that anything done evil results into evil. Not only this is highlighting the myths, not only it is highlighting the condition of women, it is also highlighting that bad done is bad resulting, and the same is in the poem. A sudden blow, the great wings beating still above the staggering girl, her thighs caressed by dark web. The poem Second Coming is the poem which is a kind of prophecy. It is a prophecy of the birth of Jesus Christ, the second birth, and it is also telling the anarchy of the present, because the anarchy is a sign that this is about to get born, and it is also being inspired by Indian scripture Gita. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanirvavati bharat abhyuthanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajarmyam. The same is here, turning and turning in the widening gyre. The falcon can't hear the falconer. The things fall apart. The center cannot hold. So the metaphor gyre is an expression of its mystical belief that history is repeated in the form of gyres. Next poem is Sailing to Byzantium. Time. Sailing to Byzantium, fish, flesh, fowl, commend all summer long. Whatever is begotten, born, and dies, caught in that sensual music, all neglect, monuments of neglect. So the poem is telling about, because Yeats is growing old, he is feeling very weak in senses, and he is happy that at least though he is weaker in senses, but he is stronger in soul. His soul is clapping and rejoicing the bodily weakness, and he is touching because he is feeling very highly elated at this condition, because by the place where he is living, all people are leading sensual life, and he wants to go to that country where art is a symbol of religion. Then the next poem is Easter 1916. It is showing conflicting feelings experienced by an Irishman during the World War I. Tension between change and permanence, tension between steadfastness and flexibility is reflected in the lines. To murmur name upon name, as a mother names her child when sleep at last has come on limbs that had run wild. This sleep is symbolic. It is a symbol of death. The next poem, The Lake Isle of Innisfree, is a desire to leave the bustle of city life in search of a simpler existence, to get back to nature where there is more spiritual fulfilling, there is more tranquility, and there is more wholesomeness. I will arise and go now, go to Innisfree, in a small cabin built there of clay and petals made. The next poem, Among School Children, is showing the visit of aging Yeats to a school where, though he is visiting this school as a public figure, but the poem is showing private feelings, private thoughts. Oh, body is swayed to music. Oh, brightening glance. How can we know the dancer from the dance? The concentration of children, how they are enjoying the life, while when we grow up, we are scattered, we are shattered between and among tensions. The poem, When You Are Old, is a tribute to the beauty as well as to the love of Maud Gonne. He's showing that he loves her soul, the beauty of soul, not to her physical beauty. Though many people have loved her, but only one is there who loves her soul. How many loved your moments of glad grace and loved your beauty with love false or true? But one man loved the pilgrim soul in you and loved the sorrows of your changing face. Lapis lazuli, it is a stone, but this stone has become highly symbolic because some pictures are carved on it, and he is telling the difference between art and life, because life is temporary while art is permanent. And because of the fear of death, because of the fear of destruction, the artist doesn't stop making sculpture, producing music and all that. They know, they miss artists know that Hamlet and Lear are gay. Gaiety transfiguring all that dread, tragedy route to its uttermost. The Wild Swans at Hule is also showing a contrast between nature and man. Man is changing. These swans are inspired by Nightingale of Yeats, Keats, Their nightingale is not an individual nightingale, it is for a whole species. The same is here. These swans are 59 in number, and they are same. They were the same when he visited the place when he was young, and as an old man when he is visiting the place again. They are the same in number, having the same step, while human beings are, he is totally changed. Their hearts have not grown old to find they have flown away. And one day he finds that they have flown away. They have gone to their destination while he hasn't received his aim, his destination. Now we are coming to the style of W.B. Yeats. W.B. Yeats' style is a distinct style, his personal style. It is a process of discovery and spontaneity is there. It is vigorous. It is very direct, and the feelings are spontaneous. They are coming out of the heart, because most of the poetry he has written is not, it is as if he himself is speaking or addressing to the people. They are so natural. The poems are so natural, so real, so lifelike. And the reader is discovering the feelings, the various moods, the various situations in life, and direct approach is there. He is sometimes mystical, but he is coming to the point. For example, in the poem Lake Isle of Mystery, he says, I shall arise and go now. He is coming to the topic directly, without wasting any time, without making any preface. And philosophy is always there. His style is philosophical, because it is sometimes it is involving Indian philosophy, sometimes Buddhism, sometimes spiritualism, sometimes magic. And in the poem Lapis Lazuli, he says, "O sages, standing in the holy fire, you should come down. You should come down in circular movement and consume my senses." So how philosophical he is, because he is coming to the philosophy that this body is of no avail, and the only thing which is important is the soul, is the religion, is the art. All these are synonyms of each other. His style is precise and specific, because he is epigrammatic. He is telling more in a few words, and it is specific also, because he has taken some specific themes only. Major poems are dedicated to love, to politics, to family, or to religion, and nothing else is there. The style is vigorous, accurate, rhythmic, intense. Language is confident and passionate, and the words are definitive and affectionate. Structural unity is there. Refrain is there. For example, refrain is making the poem more musical. Musical quality is there. For example, a terrible beauty is born. This refrain after every stanza is showing where the poet is indicating, and that is all. Thank you.